All right, everybody, welcome back. So you know that paper about UAPs and plasma that dropped in the Journal of Modern Physics?
You bet.
My Reddit DMs have been blowing up ever since. It seems like everybody's buzzing about it.
Yeah.
And honestly, I have a ton of questions myself.
Mm.
So that's why I'm really excited to have an actual scientist here today to help us break it down.
Happy to be here. Yeah, it's really exciting to see so much interest in this.
For sure. So for anybody who might not be totally up to speed, let's start with the basics. This paper is suggesting that a lot of what we think of as UAPs might actually be explained by something called plasma. What exactly is plasma, and why is it so important in this conversation?
Good question. Plasma is often referred to as like the fourth state of matter. And basically, it's what happens when you superheat a gas. The atoms get so energized that their electrons break free,
Uh-huh.
creating this mix of charged particles that can do some really interesting things.
Okay, so like a gas on steroids. I'm starting to get the picture. And this paper is saying that these charged particles, these plasmas, could be behind some of those weird lights and objects we see in the sky.
Exactly. One of the key things this paper highlights is that plasmas in space,
Mm-hmm.
specifically these things called plasmoids,
Plasmoids.
can behave in ways that often get mistaken for UAPs.
Hold up, plasmoids? That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie.
Right. But they're totally real. Plasmoids are basically self-contained blobs of plasma that can glow, pulsate, and even move around at incredible speeds.
So are you telling me that some of those viral UAP videos we obsess over,
Mm-hmm.
the ones with objects zipping around and making impossible turns,
Right.
could just be these plasmoids doing their thing?
It's definitely a possibility. The paper analyzes footage from NASA space shuttles that show plasmoids doing all sorts of wild things. We're talking about changing shape, splitting apart, merging back together, even traveling at super high speeds and making sharp turns.
Okay, now that is interesting. I can already see the Reddit threads exploding with this stuff. But why are these plasmoids hanging out in space in the first place? What makes space such a good environment for them?
It all comes down to a layer of our atmosphere called the ionosphere.
The ionosphere.
Yeah, it's way up there above where planes fly, and it's basically a hotbed of electrical activity. And this makes it the perfect breeding ground for plasmas.
Got it. So like a cosmic plasma factory up in the sky.
You got it.
And you're saying these plasmoids can come down from the ionosphere into the lower atmosphere.
That's right. And this is where things get really interesting when we start talking about pilots encountering strange phenomena. The paper brings up accounts from World War II pilots who describe seeing these glowing orbs called Foo Fighters following their planes.
Foo Fighters, like the band.
No, although that would be pretty wild.
Right.
These Foo Fighters were a real mystery back then, and this paper suggests that they could have been a type of plasma phenomenon.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all connects. So we've got plasmas in space that could explain some UAP sightings.
Right?
And now we're talking about them potentially showing up in our own atmosphere
Mm.
and even interacting with planes.
Yeah.
What about those stories of UAPs being seen near thunderstorms? Is there a link there too?
There very well could be. Thunderstorms actually supercharge the ionosphere,
I agree.
creating even more plasma activity. So it's not surprising that people might report seeing unusual things in the sky during or after a storm.
This is all making sense now. So those plasmoids up in the ionosphere could be getting a boost from thunderstorms and coming down to party in the lower atmosphere, causing all sorts of confusion and giving people some serious UFO vibes. But what about those UAP sightings we hear about over the ocean? Like, are we talking about underwater plasma bases now?
Underwater plasma bases.
Yeah.
I wish. But seriously, the ocean is another place where things get really fascinating with plasmas.
All right, hit me with it.
Yeah.
What's the deal with plasmas and the ocean?
Well, here's the thing. The ocean can actually have a positive charge.
Okay.
And as we've learned, plasmas are made up of charged particles.
So the ocean is basically a giant plasma magnet.
You could say that. And this could explain why we see so many reports of UAPs going into or coming out of the ocean. They could be attracted to the water's electrical charge.
Whoa, hold on a second. Are you telling me that the Tic Tac UAP, the one that Navy pilot David Fravor saw,
Right.
could have been drawn to the ocean because of this charge? That's insane.
It's definitely a possibility worth considering. Remember, that encounter happened over a patch of whitewater, which is known to have a stronger positive charge than calmer areas of the ocean.
Okay, mind blown. So instead of an underwater alien base, We might just have a giant natural plasma party happening in the ocean. I guess that's a little less scary, but still pretty wild.
Yeah, it really does seem like a lot of the really strange encounters happen around water.
It's true.
Yeah.
And this paper has me thinking, what if some of those like underwater base theories that we see online are just people misinterpreting
Yeah.
these plasma phenomena? Like it's not aliens, it's just physics.
Right. And it gets even weirder. This paper dives into some accounts that are really hard to explain, even with plasma.
Oh, really?
Like, remember that video from U.S. Customs and Border Protection in Puerto Rico?
Uh-huh.
The one with the shape-shifting UAP?
Oh, yeah. The one that was all over Reddit.
Yes.
That thing was nuts. It kept changing shape, splitting apart, and even seemed to dip below the waves. What did the paper say about that one?
Well, they suggest a few possibilities. One is that it was a particularly energetic and dynamic plasma.
Go like a plasma on steroids.
Pretty much. But they also suggest that it could be evidence of something even more mind-blowing.
Like what?
Like maybe it wasn't even from our dimension.
Hold on, are we talking about interdimensional plasmas now?
I know.
That's next level stuff.
It sounds like science fiction, but the paper argues that some UAPs exhibit behaviors that are difficult to explain with our current understanding of physics. So maybe, just maybe, some of them are tapping into something beyond our 4 dimensions.
Okay, I'm going to need a minute to wrap my head around that one. Interdimensional plasmas. My Reddit followers are going to lose their minds when they hear this.
Well, there's one more explanation the paper offers, and it's a bit more grounded in reality, though still pretty wild.
Okay, lay it on me.
They suggest it could have been a decoy. Some kind of advanced technology created by a military program.
Ooh, like a top secret plasma weapon or something?
Potentially. The paper mentions research being done on using lasers to create plasma images in the air.
So like a hologram made of plasma.
Exactly. And it's not entirely out there to think that some government might be experimenting with this kind of technology.
Okay, so we've got 3 possible explanations for the Puerto Rican shapeshifter. A supercharged plasma, an interdimensional being, or a high-tech military project. Which one do you think is most likely?
Honestly, it's impossible to say for sure. That's what makes this whole UAP thing so fascinating. There are so many mysteries out there, so much we still don't understand.
Right.
But this paper definitely gives us some new ways to think about these phenomena.
I agree. And it's not just about lights in the sky anymore.
Yeah.
This paper takes things even further, suggesting that plasmas might even be connected to some of those strange alien abduction stories people report.
That's right. It's a controversial idea, but it's based on some intriguing science. We know that electromagnetic fields can affect the human brain, and plasmas are basically giant balls of electromagnetic energy.
So you're saying that some people who think they've been abducted by aliens might have just had a close encounter with a plasma?
It's a possibility. A paper points to reports of people experiencing confusion, disorientation, even hallucinations near plasma events.
You know, that actually reminds me of some of the missing time stories you hear in the UFO community.
Right.
People claim they've lost hours of their lives with no explanation. Could that be a plasma thing too?
It's possible, but we need to be careful about drawing conclusions.
Yeah.
There could be many reasons why someone might experience missing time. But the idea that plasmas could affect our perceptions and memories is definitely worth investigating.
Totally. And you know what else blew my mind? This paper suggests that plasmas might be even more fundamental than that.
Yeah.
They might actually be the spark of life itself.
I know, right? It's a wild concept. It basically boils down to the idea that early Earth was this chaotic environment full of electrical activity and plasma discharges, and somehow life emerged from that.
So like the first life on Earth was basically a plasma creature.
Well, not exactly,
No.
but the building blocks of life,
Okay.
things like amino acids,
Mhm.
could have been formed in those early plasma-rich environments.
Wow. So if plasma sparked life on Earth, does that mean there could be plasma-based life out there on other planets?
Yeah.
Like what if those UAPs we see are actually sentient plasma beings from another dimension?
Now that's a question for the ages.
I know. My head is spinning with all these possibilities. We've gone from plasmas explaining UAPs to potentially being the source of life itself. This is way more than I ever expected to learn about space lightning.
It's pretty amazing stuff. And it just goes to show that there's still so much we don't know about the universe.
Totally. But we've covered a lot of ground today, from space plasmas to underwater encounters to alien abductions. Ladies, it's time for a quick breather before we jump into the final part of our deep dive. All right, we're back. And man, my brain is still buzzing from all this plasma talk. We've gone from plasmas maybe explaining those weird UAP sightings to potentially being the source of life itself. But this paper doesn't just like drop these bombshells and walk away. It also talks about how we can actually study these plasmas in a more scientific way, right?
Absolutely. Up until now, a lot of what we know about plasmas in relation to UAPs has come from random sightings and anecdotal evidence. This paper is calling for a more systematic and rigorous approach to studying them.
Okay, I'm all for bringing some real science into the UAP conversation. What kind of approach are they suggesting?
Well, they propose launching a dedicated satellite,
A satellite.
yeah, equipped with all the bells and whistles, infrared cameras, X-ray detectors, you name it. Basically a space-age plasma hunting machine.
Whoa, a dedicated plasma satellite. That's awesome. I can see the headlines now. Scientists launch mission to hunt space lightning. But seriously, what would this satellite actually do?
Well, it would be designed to observe and analyze plasmas in a controlled environment. It would even have a system for generating electromagnetic pulses.
Hold on. Are we talking about creating plasmas on demand? Like using the satellite to make our own space lightning?
Exactly. The idea is to create a controlled environment where we can study how plasmas form, how they move, how they interact with electromagnetic fields. It's about moving beyond those grainy UFO videos and getting some real data.
That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Hard data, not just blurry lights in the sky. But wouldn't that be kind of dangerous? I mean, didn't we talk about how plasmas can mess with electronics? What if we accidentally create a giant space plasma that fries all our satellites?
Yeah, that's a valid concern, and the paper emphasizes the need for safety protocols and ethical considerations. It's not about recklessly creating plasmas in space, but about conducting responsible research to better understand these phenomena.
Okay, that makes sense. Safety first, especially when we're messing around with space lightning.
Yeah,
But the paper goes even further, right? Did they talk about actually capturing a plasma?
they did. They suggest equipping the satellite with a specialized electrified net that could, in theory, trap a plasma for closer study.
An electrified net. Seriously, I'm picturing those ghost traps from Ghostbusters.
Uh-huh. It's not quite like that. But remember, plasmas are made up of charged particles. So an electrified net could potentially be a way to contain them and bring them back to Earth for further analysis.
Whoa, bringing a piece of space lightning back to Earth. That sounds both awesome and terrifying. But wouldn't it be dangerous to have like a captured plasma just hanging around? What if it, like, escapes and goes on a rampage?
Again, the paper stresses the importance of caution and ethical considerations. If we ever reach the point where we're capturing plasmas, it would have to be done with extreme care, ensuring the safety of everyone involved, and with respect for the plasma itself.
Respect for the plasma. We're talking about plasma rights now?
Well, maybe not rights. But the paper raises some really thought-provoking questions about the nature of plasmas. If they can exhibit such complex behavior, if they could be connected to the origin of life, could they be more than just inanimate objects? Could they be a form of life that we don't yet understand?
Mind blown. That's a whole other level of deep dive right there. We started this conversation trying to figure out if plasmas could explain some UAP sightings, and now we're talking about potentially sentient space lightning. This is why I love this stuff.
Me too. It's a reminder that we're just scratching the surface of what's out there. The universe is full of mysteries, and plasmas might hold the key to unlocking some of them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So what's the final takeaway for our listeners? What do you hope they walk away with after listening to this deep dive?
I hope they come away with a sense of wonder and a renewed curiosity about the world around us. Plasmas offer a fascinating and scientifically plausible explanation for many UAP sightings, and the potential for further research is immense. Maybe someday we'll be looking back at this time as the beginning of a whole new era of scientific discovery, all thanks to space lightning.
I love it. Space lightning for the win. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey, everyone. Keep those minds open and never stop questioning the universe. And hey, if you happen to see any weird lights in the sky, don't just dismiss them as UFOs. Maybe it's just plasma doing its thing. Until next time, stay curious and keep looking up.